Well, my name is Don Coyhis, and I live in Colorado Springs. I have 9 children. Out of that, I have 20 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. And so recovery has its blessings, I guess, in multiplying the tribe.
Yep.
That has been there. I have 43 years of continuous sobriety, and I started a nonprofit called White Bison. It's been running for about 35 years now. And so just cruising along. I don't travel like I used to. I've slowed down some, and we've turned things over to younger people, and they're doing it better than when I had it, and they're doing things that I thought couldn't be done. And so I occasionally offer some advice, but sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. But they have the Creator guiding them, so I'm not really too worried.
That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit about 43 years of sobriety. What was the impetus for you to finally find to get some help or seek recovery?
Death. Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't stop at the loss of my family. I didn't stop at the loss of damage I did to the children, and I didn't stop to the loss of losing my job. It didn't matter what I did. I didn't care anymore. And for me, I think there's 3 reasons. I wasn't even trying to get sober during those days. I was past that. I didn't care anymore. And I think 3 things. One is I believe my family was praying for me. That's how families are. But that didn't seem to help. And I think I had divine intervention. I think when I look back at it, somehow the Creator said that fool Indian's not going to make it. He's going to need some help. But even that I didn't recognize. But at the time, I was married to my first wife, and going through that, she found Al-Anon. And I remember the weekend that she went to an Al-Anon conference, and she came home. She caught on to what Al-Anon was about, and my life was different. I'm telling you, it was different. So I always say I didn't recognize God's help. I didn't recognize my family's prayers, but boy, that dang Al-Anon, that sure straightened my butt out, when she caught on to that. So it was through that door that I come into recovery. I was playing with death. I was doing suicidal things and driving my car close to the edge of a cliff to see if I could stop it in time, just dumb things like that. So I think I had intervention. Nothing that wasn't my decision, to really get sober that I recognized.
And you said White Bison's been around for 35 years. So tell us the story of that. And I know Sandy has some more pertinent, relevant, current issues. I don't know if they're more pertinent, but I mean that like White Bison is just a fascinating story to me.
Well, even that, I came out of a meeting one day. I must have been about 4 years sober, and it was a meeting on gratitude, which I didn't like meetings on gratitude. So at that time, but anyway, I came out and I sat down under this tree, and I realized I really was 4 years sober. I didn't cheat. I didn't slip. I didn't smell it. I didn't pretend. It was no near beer. I really was sober. And I had this idea. By then I was just chatting with the Creator, and I said, me and you both know I got 4 years. You know it and I know it. And I said, we both know that this is a miracle. And I said, I had this thought during this meeting that if you would allow me to carry this message of sobriety to my people. I said, I will spend the rest of my life doing it. But I said, if you don't want me to do that, that's fine. Whatever it is, I'll do that. So in the next number of weeks, a series of things started to happen that started to change my life. And one thing that happened was, which I wasn't really solid in my sobriety, but I had this vision, and that I took to the elders, and they always told me that that at 3 o'clock in the morning there's a door, which you switch from dark to light, but there's a window there, and that's when you have the visions. So at 3 in the morning, I had this vision, and I was sitting in this place that I used to go to when I was in trouble, and I did 5 steps there and things like that in the mountains. And in my vision, I was there, and then the ground started to glow, and very slowly this object started to come out of the ground, and it was a white bison. And when it was fully up, it turned and it looked at me with black eyes, and it had this feeling that I never felt before, and that it slowly went back down in the ground. And I had a mentor named Johnny Looking Cloud. He was taking me through the 12 steps at that particular time. And so I told him about what this was, and he lit some sage and kind of smudged me and things like this, with it. But then he said, well, this is what that is he said, if you was a Christian, he said, it would have been an angel. But he said, because of how you are, he said, the angel shaped itself into something that you would listen to. And he said, so that what that means when it looked at you with those black eyes, that means you're being called to do something. And I had no idea what that meant, except this was something on its way that I didn't know. I didn't have this goal setting of starting a nonprofit organization or none of that. It didn't work out that way. But that started a series of coincidences that led to forming a nonprofit called White Bison. That's how he got his name.
Mm-hmm. And what's the significance of the White Bison, and what did you set out to do initially?
Well, in our communities, we often have prophecies or stories that are told and handed down from one generation to the next. And about 19 generations ago, there was a story told about this 2 guys were out hunting, and this woman come walking through the woods with them, and one of the men said, I'm going to take her. And so he went over there, and she raised her hand and turned him into dust, which scared the heck out of the other guy. Mm-hmm. And she told him, go back to the village. She said, I need to talk to the people. So he went back and he prepared a feast, and she told him, she said, there's things going to start happening to your community. She called them the lightskins. And she said, they're going to take your land, they're going to mess with your children and your family and all these things. And she said, I'm going to give you 7 ceremonies that will take you through these hard times that you're going to go through. And so she gave him the ceremonies. Then when she walked away, she fell to the ground and she turned into a black buffalo. And that black buffalo walked a little ways, fell to the ground, and it stood up. It turned into a yellow one, then a red one, and then a white one. And so when she turned into the white one, she said, I will come back again during the healing time. And she says, how you will recognize me is, she said, I will turn the 4 colors, red, yellow, black, and white. So that story was told through the generations. So in 1994, there was a white buffalo calf was born in Janesville, Wisconsin. And you can actually see it if you look on Google, type in miracle, but you'll actually see that white buffalo calf, it turned to 4 colors, just like she said. And so I was not, here I'm a drunk, I had no idea that I would have any participation in anything, like that. But that was the thing that happened. What the significance of the white bison? It was something that was the stories were told many, 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 many years ago that a healing time would come, and so that was kind of the beginning of something. I mean, who would think the creator would choose a drunk? But
It makes sense to me.
oh yeah, I think who the heck would choose you to run CCAR?
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't see that coming, that's for sure.
Without a doubt.
So we were talking about that a little bit in Colorado because your message was so powerful about, and I'm looking at, you're wearing a baseball cap with the hoop, with the red, yellow, black, and white, and I'm seeing in our attempts in the world for racial healing, we are often focusing on dividing us even more. And you were sharing, your culture's perspective that it is time to bring the races together. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
In my sobriety, I've had this visions at 3:00 3 times, and the difference between a dream and a vision is your dreams. You will always be in your own dreams. When you have one of these visions, you're not in there, but there's a feeling that you'll never, never forget. In this vision that I had, there was this beam of light come down from the sky, and then in that beam of light, there was a tree started to grow. It was like a seed come out of the ground. I guess it's like on PBS how they show fast motion.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched this tree grow and went through the seasons. The leaves bud and matured and fall, and then they fell off, and then the branches fell off. And then this branch rose up, the stem rose up in the ground, and it formed in a circle. Then in the left, to the north, there was this little ball of light, and it started to move down, and it dipped to the earth, and it come up as an eagle feather connected to this hoop. And it did that. It started in the north, and it would go east, south, west, north, east, south, west, north. Continued to do that until there was 100 eagle feathers. Then when the feathers got there, the rim of it turned red, yellow, black, and white, the 4 colors. And so when I took that to the elders, I was supposed to just take it to one elder, and there actually was 17 of them there, and it scared the Jesus out of me going in front of them. So then I get there, and what they told me, they said, "Tell us the story of your life." God, I mean, I had nothing going on. Finally, I said, I'm a drunkard. I said, I'm sober, trying to get my family stuff back together. They said, well, tell us the story. So I told them the story and all the bad stuff that I did and all of that. So about 3:00 in the afternoon, they stopped, and then they smudged me with sweetgrass. And so one of them, they said, we've been waiting for you. They said, something happened to you when you was 12. That's when you was chosen. And I never knew this one experience I had. I was raised by my grandpa, and I had this experience. I told my grandpa about it. He just cried. He said, someday you'll know what this is about, So anyway, what they told me, they said that a healing time was coming. And they said, a long time ago, the Creator came to our Turtle Island. That's what they call the United States and Canada. But they said he'd come there and he gathered the people together. And he said, I'm going to divide you into 4 directions: red, yellow, black, and white. Into each of those directions, I'm going to put inside of you some teachings, original teachings. And said, to the red direction, I'm going to give you the teachings about the earth, about plants, about animals, about connectedness. The yellow direction, I'm going to give you the teachings about the breath, the wind, meditation. The black direction, so I'm going to give you the teachings about the water. And then in the north, the white direction, you are getting the teachings about the fire. And he said, you're to go through the cycles of time and learn about the things that are written inside of you. And he said, the day will come, the healing time comes, all 4 directions are going to come back and set in a circle. And he said, you're going to sit in that circle and you're going to realize that the Creator did not make 4 races. He said, all this time you were thinking you're going to be different than the other humans, but he said that's not true. That over those times, the people were telling you you were not a part of. And so he said, what you're going to realize is that you sit in that circle, and what you're going to realize is that when you're in the womb, that is when the Creator will give you each one your earth suit, they called it. And so some suits are red, some yellow, some black, and some white. But they said that when you sit in that circle, you're going to realize you're going to be given the vision to look past the earth suit. You can look inside of you, and you can see, wow, you love your children just like I love my children. You would die for this just like I would die for this. All of a sudden, you'd realize that there's not this separation, and that this healing time would come and would take place. So this was told us at a gathering of elders in the 90s, and we had no idea what they were talking about. I mean, we were young compared to how they were, and they would tell us things, and we would nod like, we got it, but we didn't got it. We didn't understand, all what that meant. And so then this is how they explained it to us. What we were to do is that we got to look at one another differently. And then with this hoop that of 100 eagle feathers, it was taken by the white buffalo cap. Then we had to bring together the traditional black people, traditional yellow, traditional white, traditional red. And you can imagine being early in sobriety. That's not like putting a conference on in Colorado Springs,
Yeah.
We didn't have the money. We didn't know how to do things. It was all like that. And a series of coincidences started to happen. And so we found these elders in Africa that had been dreaming about this hoop that we were making. And then by coincidence, we run into the Tibetan monks from over there. In fact, the oldest monk actually was a teacher of the Dalai Lama. He was an older man, but he was there. And then we had no idea. We had never heard of white elders. And we found a tribe in Finland called Sami, Saami, and they keep the reindeer. Mm. And we found out, we brought them over. They have their own drum, just like we have a drum. They have their own language, just like we have our own language. The people around their communities don't like them, just like people don't like us, in our communities. So we got along pretty good with them. And then for 2 days, these 4 directions, they talked about what was going on in the world and how is it the healing time is going to happen. And for 2 days, you could sit and listen to these each talk about their communities. They had things in common. We were all in trouble. So they said, we're going to put 4 powers in this hoop. It will be like a radio tower. It's going to be pulsing. Once you put the power in there, wherever it goes, it will pulse. We didn't understand that. So they come time to do that ceremony. The drum started playing, and this little white buffalo cap was laying down in the pasture. And it came by the fence, it stood up, and it just watched that ceremony. It stood there all afternoon watching what was going on. So they put into this 4 powers that we would need in order for us to come together, 4 red, yellow, black, and white. So the first ones they put in there was the powers to forgive the unforgivable. They said there's been a lot of hurt has been done, and even forgiving the unforgivable is necessary. So they put that power in that hoop, that when you come there, it would change your heart, it would change your mind. The second power they put in there was unity. When you come in there, you would know you can't do this alone, that you got to do it together. It's a feeling, that you get. You got to have help. The third was the powers of healing. So they said, when you come by this hoop, you would know you got to heal you. You're the one that needs to be changed. And then the fourth was the powers of the hope, the ability for the dream, that you could see that. So then it took all afternoon. They did a ceremony to put those powers in there. And while they were doing it, that calf stood up. The drum was playing all afternoon. In fact, the drum did not quit, and the little kids would run get water in a rag, and they would put it on those drummers' foreheads so they could keep singing, because the drummers, they weren't singing the song, they were the song. That's how that, it was so strong, you know, what was going on there. And so when that was done, then the elders said, we're going to do the closing ceremony, and they called me up there to make me the keeper of that hoop. And I stopped the ceremony, and I said, I have to be honest. I said, I'm a drunkard. I said, if you could see on TV one day what goes on in my head, you would not make me keepers of nothing, because it's not good. I said, my sponsor called my head an inner ghetto. That's how he referred to what it was. So they talked in a circle in their own languages, and when they come back, they said, then straighten yourself up, because you got to keep this hoop.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, it isn't yours. That when the people ask for this hoop to come to their community, you have to take it there. And you can't say, give me gas money or write a grant. They said, you just get in your car and take it to them. And so since that time, I travel over 200,000 miles going to communities, taking that hoop there. And then we do that ceremonies. Then those 4 powers, they pulse out in the community. You know, there's forgiveness takes place, and you see it's like the organizational chart divides us, the way that it makes, it doesn't like you working together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can't help, mental health can't help. There is a separation system. So you start to see that coming together time. And so that was the story that we were told on how we were to look at the diversity, you know, and those types of things. So we just try to, what we use as our model is nature. Nature is a diverse system. It has rules that shows it how to get along with each other. Just because you're the tallest pine tree doesn't mean you're special. You know, that's not the way that it is. It has a different set of rules. And when you see specialty groups form, then you got to be careful, because specialty groups will then think they're entitled. Then the politicians will give them what they want, no matter whether it's in harmony or not, to get their votes. And if they don't get their way, they become victims. Victims of the world that I see. So it's the elders, they taught us that nature is our guide. Everything that we do, we have to say, does this fit in nature? And so that's kind of how we look at the diversity, you know, today.
Thank you for sharing that.
Every time I hear you speak, you always bring up like new little tidbits that I didn't quite always know, and the story just keeps building, and I'm just more in awe and fascination and belief, really, because I've been in the presence of that hoop and has felt it change me, you know, felt the power. And it's just you know, the thing that you said, those 4 powers in there, to me it's just a symbol of absolute divine love, and you know, it goes against my traditional teachings and beliefs that I was taught in some ways, but then if you dig deeper, it actually aligns, and it's fascinating to me. I know you've been at this work all those years, and you said you traveled 200,000 miles with the hoop. But what have you seen as far as what the hoop has done and what your nonprofit has done? And after all these years, how would you sum that up?
I don't know if I could really. I watched my observations with the hoop. It seems that those who carry that hoop, when they carry it in, one of the top things I hear later on that those people are given their meaning and purpose to life. That they all of a sudden they go, I know why I was born, and and that goes on. And then the other thing is there is a fight in our elders' teachings. They say the human being grows in 4 directions: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. And so all 4 of those must be present in order to develop and to grow. So what we find is when we take a look at dominant culture, where they give us the funding, they measure emotional, mental, physical, but not spiritual. And so our culture is all 4 directions that they have to be there. So when we go emotional, mental, physical, I think I can sum this up best. I was attending a conference in Canada, and they have their equivalent of NIH, the National Health, and they had all these researchers coming present brain waves and all the latest technology that's wonderful. And they had 20 elders there, and my job was to sit with these elders and let them observe during the day. And then at the end of the day, I was to tell them the elders' view of what they observed. And so that was my job. So at the end of the first day, they brought me up there, and these elders, they said, tell them this. They said, tell them that how they are measuring things for what they measured is true. So they were talking about, you do this, you get hardwired, and they were explaining how that all worked, showing brain waves and all that stuff. So they gave me a plate, and they said, I want you to show them, put that plate on your hand, and it's got to be balanced: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. And to tell them what you measured was measured correctly, but there's a missing part, and that's the spiritual. You didn't include that. And they said, the spiritual power has a power to override hardwired. There's other powers there that you need to know about. And there was 4 doctorate level people sitting on that panel with a moderator. And when I got done, I just spoke aloud to the elders. I said, did I say this, what you said? And they nodded their head that I did. So no one knew what to do after that. It got really quiet. And so the moderator says, thank you for sharing. And so I started to walk down there, and there was this elderly gentleman sitting in the front table. He was dressed just wonderful, just with a handkerchief in his pocket, silver hair, and he had a cane, and he tapped his cane on the ground, and he said, I want to talk. So he must have been like the Einstein of Canada or something. So anyway, they brought him up there, and he said, supposing that what you just heard was correct, just supposing it was. He said, these old people know some things. And he said, we're not listening to them. And he said, I want for the next 4 years that when we plan what we're going to do, we want you to bring a representation of these elders to show what we are going to do and get their input. We need to include their spirituality. And they've done that. 4 years now, they brought them back, to do that. So the best way I could explain my observation is I sometimes cry because the dominant culture won't listen to the elders' teachings. They don't want to measure spirituality. And one thing that we have a council of elders that guide us. And a number of years ago, remember that Gipper survey?
Yeah.
Well, when we took that to the elders, that survey is used to get funding from Congress, from various organizations. And when we had to start to ask the elders about their sex life and those things, that's not something that you do protocol in any other tribes. And if you didn't, they would make no exceptions. They said, no, you have to have these elders answer this types of questions. They were very invading, and it's just something that we've never been asked to do. So when that was done, our board of directors and elders, they said, we want you to work on becoming financially independent. Don't become dependent on grants. That's how we were. We were dependent on, so I guess it's like the Congress, the lobbying. When you give them money, they got to vote how you want. When the government gives you certain grants, they tell you how to do it. And it was not working for us. So our choices was to either be honest or be sneaky. That we would go do what we knew that worked and then lie to them and give them the numbers, that they wanted. But we set that goal to be free of grants, and we are today. Wow. We're not dependent. If we get a grant, that's just wonderful. That's like frosting on the cake. But if we don't have one, that's wonderful too, because we can now do what we know that works, and that's the culture, and that's a spirituality. It's about. I guess it's like William Penn. I read something he said one time, and he says, "Man is destined to be ruled by God, or you'll be ruled by a petty tyrant." That's just what it is. Yeah.
I take that teaching to heart. We haven't had a federal grant since 2008, so that's 14 years. We do work with the state. I remember you talking at one of the conferences, and maybe it was just you and I, or maybe it was a room, I don't remember, but your words struck true about somebody asked you about how do you diversify funding or be sustainable, and you talked about sitting on a mountain looking at a mountain lake and saying that there are many sources of water into that mountain lake. So if one of them gets blocked up or dries up, there's other sources coming in. And I've used that ever since, and we've just grown and grown and grown. So fully on board with that, a lesson of nature, right, that you're talking about, that has to align with nature. And we also chose to be honest and transparent. And when we told them about GIPRA and what research did, we no longer received funding either. So they didn't like my response either. But
yeah,